how do you relate to how chord patterns help you in your music and in your playing nowadays?
This is very important. Um, in what we call Western music, we have these patterns. A two chord usually goes to a five chord, usually goes to a one chord. And if you're dealing with jazz standard tunes, the composers have a template. It's a 32 bar tune, and it might be an A section followed by an A section, then a B section, an A section. So you have little clues sometimes, as you said, if you're trying to play by ear. When I first started playing in New York, I was being called by different musicians to accompany them, and sax players, trumpet players, whatever it might be. And I try to prepare myself. I try to learn as many standard tunes as possible. But it's hard. It's hard to memorize tunes. It's hard to remember them if you're not playing them all the time. But I had a call from a well-known sax player. His name was Junior Cook, who was a great hard bop player. He was played with Horace Silver and the Jazz Messengers. He led his own group, and he had a gig, and I got called for it. I'm not sure why I got called, but I got called for it. And there was no piano player. It was Junior on sax, guitar, bass, drums, and vibes. And we started playing, and Junior wouldn't call the name of the tune. He'd just start playing. He wouldn't tell you what key he was in. He wouldn't tell you what tune. And you had to hear what was going on. And on that gig, which was a hard gig, but I started to realize that there's these patterns, 2-5-1. I realized that I'm going to grab my guitar. Sometimes I can illustrate better. I realized that most standard tunes are going to start either on a one chord or they're going to start on a two chord. Maybe sometimes like Just Friends, it starts on a four chord, but most times it's a two chord or a one chord. And what I realized,
starts on two.
What I realized is that I worked backwards. In other words, the end of the tune is going to wind up on a one chord. So what's going to come before that one chord? Probably a five chord. And what's going to come before that? Probably a two chord. So if I have the ending and I have the beginning, I know it's a two or a one chord. It's that middle that has to be filled in. I could sort of hear that. So playing with Junior, I got to figure out how to do that. But standards are all about these patterns, as you say, a 1-6-2-5 or a 2-5-1. Once you recognize that, that makes things a little easier. Now, when I started to study Brazilian music, besides Jobim and the Bossa Nova guys, I started getting into the samba canción composers, Noel Rosa, Eri Barroso. And I realized, first of all, that they were composing the same time period as North American composers, Cole Porter, Jerome Kern, Irving Berlin. And they're using the same 32-bar template, what we call the European song form. It could be AABA, it could be ABAC, but it's usually 32 bars. And once I started studying their music, and so on, I realized it's the same patterns. It's 2-5-1s. It's 1-6-2-5. It's all that. It's that sort of stuff. So knowing that, understanding that is going to help you when you're playing Western music, whether it's coming from North America or South America. So with my students, I make sure that everybody knows their 2-5-1 progressions in every key. And I make sure they know them in different positions. I tell them, make sure you know 2-5-1 starting with the bass note on the sixth string. But also know them, same key, with bass notes starting on the fifth string. And so on. Maybe even bass notes starting on the fourth string. Know all the variations. If you know that, that's a good starting point.
I'm laughing because that's exactly what I teach my students.
Okay. It's a universal thing, I think, with
Yes.
this. You have to know these progressions, and you have to know them in different places. You can't just move your hand there you go, right there. Exactly. So I hope that answers your question. This is vital, knowing these patterns.
That answers my question. That answers many people's questions.
Okay.
And in that job that I didn't get because I was very bad, the only thing I could play was the one chord in the beginning and the final 2-5-1.
Right.
There was a little part missing.
Yeah.
There were like 30 or 29 bars missing.
Well, that's what my teacher used to tell me. Sal used to say, any gig you do, whether it's a good gig or a bad gig, you're going to learn something from it.
Yes.
So even you get to a gig and you realize, oh, I don't know this, I need to go home and work on this, then that's a good thing.